The older I get and the more I learn, the more I realize how much history we were never given at all, especially when it comes to Black women. When we talk about the civil rights movement, we're given a few familiar names, usually men, and while their contributions matter, they're not the whole story. This Black History Month, I want to do something different. This is part one of a three-part series on Black women and civil rights, and today I want to focus on three women whose lives shaped the very language, strategy, and structure of the civil rights movement in America, the women who laid the groundwork for everything that came after. Long before there were marches, sit-ins, or legislation, there were Black women building the intellectual, legal, and moral foundation for freedom. They didn't wait for permission, they built the infrastructure. Here is part one of Black women and civil rights, the women who laid the groundwork. Sojourner Truth was a Black abolitionist and women's rights activist whose life itself was an act of resistance. Born into slavery, she escaped to freedom in 1826. In 1828, she sued and won a court case to recover her son who had been illegally sold into slavery in Alabama. She became the first Black woman to successfully sue a white man in U.S. court. Go, sis. That victory lit something in her. By 1850, with the book of her life story in hand, she began lecturing across the country. She funded her own speaking tours, not just through book sales, but by selling photographs of herself, like this one, as souvenirs. At a time when photographers owned the rights to these images, Sojourner found a workaround. She printed her own slogan on the front, "I sell the shadow to support the substance." She understood image, ownership, and narrative power long before those were considered political tools. During the Civil War, she helped recruit Black soldiers for the Union Army and worked tirelessly to ensure that troops of color were treated fairly. Her advocacy brought her to Washington, D.C., where she met with President Abraham Lincoln. And in 1865, she once again used the courts, this time forcing the desegregation of Washington, D.C. streetcars after a conductor assaulted her. Nearly a century before Rosa Parks, Sojourner Truth used civil disobedience, legal action, and public pressure to challenge segregation in transportation. Her famous speech, "Ain't I a Woman?" exposed how Black women were excluded from dominant ideas of womanhood, revealing the unique oppression at the intersection of race and gender. Meet Mary McLeod Bethune. Mary McLeod Bethune believed that education was one of the most powerful tools for liberation. Born to formerly enslaved parents, she rose from rural poverty to become one of the most influential Black leaders of the 20th century. In 1904, with $1.50 and 5 students, she opened the Daytona Educational and Industrial Training School for Negro girls. That school would later merge with the Cookman Institute to become Bethune-Cookman College, one of the first fully accredited, historically Black colleges in Florida. She didn't stop there. She founded McLeod Hospital to serve Black patients who were otherwise denied care. During the Great Depression, Bethune became a close advisor to President Franklin D. Roosevelt as part of the informal group known as the Black Cabinet. Though the Black Cabinet had no official policy-making power, something Bethune fully understood. She recognized the importance of presence. She once said, "When they see me, they know that the Negro is present." She emerged as a de facto leader of the group, organizing its members into the Federal Council of Negro Affairs and using that platform to push for federal investment in Black education, employment, and families. In 1935, she founded the National Council of Negro Women, uniting Black women's organizations nationwide in a coordinated political force. Her influence extended beyond the United States. She attended the founding conference of the United Nations in 1945. Iconic. Near the end of her life, Bethune wrote an essay titled "My Last Will and Testament," published posthumously in Ebony magazine. In it, she left Black Americans a legacy of values, love, hope, confidence in one another, and a thirst for education and respect for the responsible use of power. Ida B.Wells-Barnett understood that truth documented and distributed could be revolutionary. Emancipated from slavery in 1865, her life was marked early by responsibility. When her parents died in a yellow fever epidemic, 16-year-old Ida became the primary caretaker for her 6 siblings. She became a school teacher to support them, eventually moving to Memphis, Tennessee. There, she found her voice as a journalist, writing under the pen name Lola. She became the editor of the Evening Star and later partner and editor of Free Speech and Headlight. Her sharp editorials on racial injustice earned her national recognition and the titles Princess of the Press and the Brilliant Lola. In 1892, her work took a devastating turn when her close friend Thomas Moss was lynched. Wells-Barnett investigated the case herself, exposing false narratives and racial bias in the official accounts. Her reporting enraged white supremacists, leading to threats that forced her to leave Memphis. And she did not retreat. She traveled across the country and internationally, documenting lynchings and exposing the systems that enabled them. In 1895, she published A Red Record, a meticulously researched account of lynchings in the United States, using data, history, and firsthand reporting. She shattered the myth that lynching was about justice, revealing it as a tool of racial terror. Wells-Barnett was also deeply involved in women's suffrage. Her insistence on centering Black women often put her at odds with white suffrage leaders. She respected Susan B. Anthony's work, but openly criticized the movement's willingness to sacrifice Black women's rights to maintain white support. Sounds familiar, right? In response, Wells-Barnett helped found organizations by and for Black women, including the Alpha Suffrage Club, which addressed race, gender, and class, especially the concerns of working-class women. She did not live to see the civil rights movement, but its radical spirit, investigative rigor, and insistence on collective action carry her fingerprints everywhere. These women didn't wait for history to make room for them. They sued, they wrote, they organized, they built institutions, challenged laws, and reshaped the moral imagination of the country. They didn't just prepare the way for the civil rights movement, they created it. Stay tuned for part 2 of Black Women and Civil Rights.